All right, and stop and acknowledge your partner. Okay, so there's just a little bit of integrity that I left out last session. And one of the things that I'm committed to in the seminar is that anytime that I'm sharing anything, part of the intention of me sharing what I'm sharing is so that you're getting trained and developed in what it looks like to actually be using these distinctions in your lives. And so I was cleaning up, I was restoring a lack of integrity. So if not all of you were here, but I was restoring something about standards and ideals. And what I had said was the lack of integrity was relating to all of you from standards and ideals. And but then what I didn't say is the impact of that. And when you're restoring integrity, it's important to go all the way through. So it's not just the lack of integrity, the broken promise or the broken agreement or the standards and ideals or whatever the lack of integrity is. That's important to acknowledge that, but then it's also critical for you to be present to what the impact is, and to also acknowledge and be responsible for the impact. And when you're actually present to the impact, an impact doesn't mean you feel really bad. Now, part of the impact might be you have some disempowered experience of yourself, or you might feel guilty or something like that. But the point of acknowledging that impact isn't so that you can feel bad about it. That's not what that means. It means looking in reality and seeing what the impact is on you and others, and then being responsible for that. And then in that space, that's what actually allows for a new possibility to arise. So here's the impact that I didn't acknowledge, is that for one thing, for me, there was a sense of dissatisfaction and lack of fulfillment in terms of my commitment. Right, so just like this sense of, well, I'm not quite delivering what I want to deliver. It's not quite connecting in the way that I wanted to, or it's not quite whatever. But again, in a whole world of a comparison. And then for you all, just anytime there's any kind of comparison about anything, then, you could be left with some experience of not being whole and complete. Or it could show up like, this is probably more what it could be, is some experience of distance. Even if you didn't know that there was anything there or not there, it could leave me with the me over here and you with the you over there, and then just some wall there or some barrier. And so that's the impact that I want to see and be and completely responsible for. And I know I completed it last week, but there was that one aspect that wasn't. And one of my commitments is that I do complete work. So that's another important aspect of integrity, is that you actually do complete work. And I just started noticing all the places where I cut corners. So maybe I'll go this far in my job, but I don't do that 10%, but maybe that 10% was the difference between having a good performance and having an extraordinary performance. So on my preparation, I might practice an aspect of the seminar, but then I'll cut out a little bit at the end. Well, that little bit at the end might be the 5 minutes that's going to be the most transformational thing for somebody. So my promise, what I'm now adding on to my promise, is that any distance or anything that I see that's between me and any of you gets completed with velocity, so that you're fully empowered in our relationship with each other. There's nothing in the way of you hearing me as a coach, and there's nothing in my way of listening you is the possibility you are. And I say in that space is miracles. That's where miracles can happen. And I had such I gotta tell you, there were several of you that I had calls with over the weekend, and they were just extraordinary. They were just, I couldn't stop sharing about the conversations that I was having with you. And so I want to just also acknowledge the people who were, so there were 15 people last session took requests for coaching or made requests for coaching. And I had calls with most of you, and then left messages, or at least was in communication with everybody. And they were just really extraordinary. So I really just appreciate everything that everybody's taking on in here and being in demand for the coaching. Okay, so anything about that for anybody? Anything anyone hears and anything about that you want to share? Yeah, Cindy?
I guess it's something for here. I just thank
Yeah.
you for taking time. That was significant. And it was significant to me help me through that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You are very welcome. Yeah, well, and likewise, so anytime anyone opens up and really shares themselves in a way that's authentic, it's very generous and it's a huge act of courage. And, and my commitment is that's not just here and that's not just with us, but that gets out of here and it gets out into the people in your lives, because that's where it's really going to make the difference. So thank you. Okay, great. All right, so before, this is weird verbiage in here. Before we begin, we began at 7 o'clock. All right, so but before we get into the meat of the seminar, I want to take a moment and acknowledge you for being here. Now, your being here might not seem like a big deal to you, but I invite you now to have it be a big deal. And it is a big deal. If for no other reason, your being here is a big deal because in the world we live in, there aren't very many people who are actively taking on their transformation and who are actively taking on their lives and are in a conversation about integrity. Most people will scream or run away from conversations about integrity, especially when their integrity gets, put on the mat. But you're here and you're doing that. And you're one of the few people not only working towards your own transformation, but the transformation of others and the transformation of life. And that is a big deal. In the game of transformation, as in all the important games in life, sometimes our struggles will be what colors our experience. And so we'll focus on what's not working. We'll focus on, the struggle and effort and hard work, and we'll lose sight of the big picture. And sometimes our life is colored more by our breakdowns than it's colored by our accomplishments. And then it's colored by the results we've produced. It's colored by the breakthroughs we've produced. And I know nobody in here is like this, but people are often very hard on themselves. So how many of you can see your tendency is to have your struggles and breakdowns color your view of yourself rather than your accomplishments? How many of you can actually see that? Yeah, it's like much part of the human condition. So confronting one's integrity is one of the most challenging things a human being can do. And you're doing it. I know for some of you, this seminar is right in your face. There's stuff that's come up that you're dealing with that you would really not rather deal with. But you're doing it. So only people of courage and commitment are up to that kind of challenge. And that's who you are. So whatever space you're in the seminar, even if it's looked like nothing but struggle and breakdowns and hard work, whatever space you're in is completely fine. And I request you give yourself the space to be here. This seminar is about being powerful with anything. And that includes your own experience. So sometimes we have what occurs like a negative experience, and that takes us out. That takes us out of the games we play in life. But if you can have power with even your own experience, then you can be with anything that's happening with you. So regardless of the space you're in, I invite you to have your session colored by your accomplishments, colored by your courage to be here and what you're up to, rather than what you're struggling with. Okay, so if you're taking that on, if you're actually going to be here like that, just raise your hand so I know that you actually got that and you're going to be here like that.
Can you repeat that last statement, please?
Yeah. So regardless of the space you're in right now, because you could be all over the board. Regardless of whatever space you're in right now, I invite you to have your seminar colored by your accomplishments and what you're up to, rather than what you're struggling with. Okay? Yeah. You have something to share? Or you're taking that on? Oh, you're taking it out? Good. That's great, Jason. I appreciate you looking to see. Hold on a second. I don't know. I'm not going to just raise my hand.
I had to process that the second time. I was looking at
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I'm good with that.
Great, thanks.
Can I share, please?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I know, I'm like, yeah. Hi, so this came up last week when I was talking to Dean, and he was having me recreate, he was recreating session 4 for me, and I shared it with my group on the call. Jesus. It's like this is so weird that this would be this kind of thing, right, that I'm about to say would have such an impact on me right now while you're saying it. But it occurred to me, thank you. It occurred to me that I've been making myself really wrong about the way that that I react to things that go on in the seminar. And even when there's like a really moving and awesome story, I had it that like I had to have some like, wow, and like, this is what I'm gonna do in my life because of that. And I would feel really shitty, sorry, that, you know, I didn't like, that all I was doing was hearing it. And then at some point I was like, well, I was talking to Dean on the phone, and he said, you know, he told a story, and he said, do you have anything to share about that, or any thoughts? And that's when I realized it, and I was like, you know, I don't, you know, that's a really great, inspiring story, and that's all. And I was like making myself so wrong about, and it wasn't just that story, it's like everything that's been going on in this seminar. I've been really hard on myself for not, you know, not having some kind of crazy revelation, or, because like, you know, when things occur to me, like, I already know that, and then I can put them aside, and I'm like, well, it's sort of like the same tune. It's just like, I get that, and I can see that in my life, but I don't know. I'm really glad that you said what you just said. Even though that's something I've always known. Like, I did my first forum when I was 18, like 11 years ago, and that was never an issue, so I thought. It was always said, they always said throughout the forum and the advanced course and all the seminars, they would always say, you know, where you are is fine, that's where you are. It's not just that it's fine, it's just that it's where you are. You can't really do anything about that. Yeah. And that's what you have to work with. And I'm just tired of making myself wrong about that.
Good. So are you now declaring an end to that?
And I thank you, and I'm complete with that.
Okay, good. And now, right, having said all that, what's available to you?
Well, one thing that I mentioned when it was occurring to me was that maybe I don't have to have anything to say. You know, I always have a lot to say, but people don't always need you to say something to them. They need you to listen sometimes and just be there, because like you guys are doing right now, is you're just listening. You're not like giving me feedback right now. You're just there. And sometimes it takes hashing something out with somebody who is actually present to see something for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I can be through not needing to say something in response all the time.
It's really brilliant, Janet. And I got that you just discovered that for yourself. Do you know that the listening, when you grant somebody your listening, and I don't mean just hearing them or pretending to hear, for sure I don't mean that either, but when you grant somebody your listening, that's one of the most generous things that a human being can do. even if there's not, if you're not